If I want to thrive, I must be my biggest motivator. At the beginning of my semester at Alzar, I experienced major culture shock. I struggled with all the new challenges that faced me and wanted to throw in the towel and go home. My mom told me that I couldn't give up yet, that things would get better. After our conversation, I knew that if I wanted to get the most out of my semester here at Alzar, I was going to have to give it my all, and that's exactly what I did. At Alzar, I faced many challenges, and it took me a long time to realize those challenges were only temporary. I realized during my semester that there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. Every challenge you face will eventually come to an end. If you keep working and never give up, you will be so glad of what you have accomplished when you get to the end of that tunnel. Coming to the conclusion that all challenges that I face are only temporary, and that so much good can come from those challenges, took me a long time to realize. In fact, I didn't fully realize that until Parents' Weekend. Before Parents' Weekend, I was just doing what I was used to doing for the last few months at Alzar. I was persevering and pushing through each of my challenges one by one. I wasn't even comprehending when I had overcome a challenge. When my parents came to visit, all that changed. They couldn't stop talking about how amazed they were at all what I had accomplished here at Alzar. They couldn't believe all the skills all of us here had acquired. All of a sudden, I realized where all my hard work and persistence had put me. I had all these new outdoor skills that I probably wouldn't have unless I had come to Alzar. And while it took me a long time and lots of persistence to attain those skills, I was suddenly proud of what I had achieved. Over Parents' Weekend, I also had parent-teacher conferences that left my parents glowing. They were so proud of me, and I realized I should be proud of myself too. At that moment, I was reaching my academic goals that I had set for myself before I had arrived at Alzar, but was so focused on all the hardship that it took me to reach those goals that I hadn't really taken a moment to appreciate all my hard work. Parents' Weekend helped me to see the light that comes at the end of the tunnel, and it made me appreciate my own persistence. Looking back at my experiences now, there were so many events that led up to my realization during Parents' Weekend. In overcoming each challenge, I displayed my persistence and constant motivation. It just took looking back upon these challenges for me to realize that. During the first 3 weeks of Alzar, I had a really hard time adjusting. For the first 2 weeks, I was on cook crew and had to wake up early every day. I was exhausted. I had never had such a busy schedule, and it was eating me alive. Where was all my free time? How was I supposed to complete all my homework in just a few hours? My academic goals seemed to be a ruin. I wanted to go home. Finally, everything came crumbling down. It was my 16th birthday, and we had only been at Alzar for 6 days. I felt uncomfortable not knowing anyone, and it just wasn't the same. That night, I called my mom and talked to her for about an hour. She assured me that everything would get easier and better. I just needed to stay strong and push through the first 3 weeks. As I dried my tears, I realized she was right. After that conversation, I decided I was going to have to motivate myself and persevere if I wanted to get the most out of my semester. For me, this signified me defeating my first challenge. My second big challenge came not long after arriving in Chile. It was our first week in San Fabian. I was going on my first real backpacking trip in the Rio Hulileo region, and I was leader of the day on our hike in. I was really excited to use my leadership skills for the first time, and the first chance I had, I got the group as excited as possible for the hike. The hike started out fine, but then it got difficult. The trail ended, and I had to blindly lead my group through the woods for about an hour until we finally found the trail again. When we got back to the trail, things got steep, fast. It got to the point where we were having to crawl on our hands and knees to get up certain parts. Everyone was miserable. I panicked. The last thing I wanted was for everyone to be unhappy during my first time leading. I myself was feeling very defeated, but kept a brave face on for my group. The rest of the hike, I persevered and kept motivating my group until we finally got to the campsite. I was relieved. It was over. I started to tear up under my sunglasses. That hike was one of the most challenging things I had ever done. And I remember in the moment being proud of myself for completing that challenge, but I hadn't quite realized the huge challenge I had just crushed. I displayed my persistence and found the light at the end of the tunnel that seemed might never end. I defeated my second big challenge. My final big challenge that I had to overcome came after my realization on Parents' Weekend. The second day of the Oahe backpacking trip, I was leader and was tasked with navigating the group, along with my fellow leaders, 7 miles to our next campsite. The day was mostly uphill and rough terrain. After some frustrating circumstances, we got to the point where we were hiking up Sheepshead Ridge. My feet had been bothering me all day, but they finally got to the point where I found myself in tears over the pain that I was feeling. I knew that all challenges come to an end, and I would find the light at the end of my tunnel. But at the time, I felt like I just couldn't walk anymore. With the help of my friends, and Dan and Ellie, who took some of the weight from my pack, I was able to keep walking to the campsite. When I finally arrived, the applause and cheers filled me with so much joy. My theory about all challenges coming to an end was true, and in that moment, I was so proud of my persistence and strength. I had overcome my third big challenge. Life is not always perfect. I'm always going to face challenges. I just have to work through them and realize there is so much more at the end of the tunnel when you defeat the challenge that you face. In the future, I have planned to apply this notion and the notion of persistence to many aspects of my life. I know that junior year is going to be a very academically tough year for me, and I plan to use what I have learned here at Alzar to motivate me through next year. I also plan to apply what I have learned to my active life. If I'm doing a workout that is tough, I will know that the pain is only temporary and that I will be so much healthier because I'm doing it. Finally, I plan to apply what I have learned to the college application process, applying to jobs, and so much more. What I have realized about challenge and persistence here at Alzar is truly a skill that I will use for the rest of my life. If I want to thrive, I must be my biggest motivator. What I originally wrote in my Corinthia speech at the beginning of the semester turned out to be true. I faced so many challenges this semester, and with my own personal motivation, I was able to persevere through those challenges and come out stronger and proud. I found that when you are in the thick of a challenge, you don't realize how you're growing. It is not until you reflect upon those challenges that you learn to be proud of all your growth. The Alzar experience has been so valuable to me, and I hope that semesters to come will realize and learn the same lesson of hard work and persistence that was so important to me